Let's just agree, Jim Carrey in the 90s was like the funniest guy ever. Hello, everybody. This is Ledger Forever, and today I will be ranking all three Jim Carrey 1994 movies from the least best to the best. But just so you know, the reason I'm doing this one is simply because this is like one of the greatest career years for an actor like ever. Like, he had three fantastic comedies within the span of like a few months around. Like, he got three fantastic comedies, so I thought it would be a great time to rank them, so that will be fun. So let's start by talking about the least best, but this is not a bad film. I would recommend all these films, but with all that said, let's get started. At number 3, I have Ace Ventura, Pet Detective. Not a bad movie by any means. Like an 8 out of 10 for me. I think this movie is hilarious. This movie is just so good at showing the like physical part of Jim Carrey and how he can do some really good physical comedy, and how he is. This just shows the ADHD crazy side of him. Like, this guy goes all out in all of his movies that comes to him being a comedian. This one, he's going full on nuts. Like he's doing some really funny stuff. I think it's where the third act. The third act is kind of what was the deal breaker, and the fact is it starts to slow down the third act. But there's some really funny scenes in this movie. Like, there's a really funny thing in the third act about where Jim Carrey is trying to convince people that the woman is some sort of woman is like the bad person in this. It's hard to explain. If you've seen the movie, I think you know what I mean. If not, you're just going to be very confused by what I just said. Believe me, it's a really funny movie. I would easily recommend this to you. And the sequel that came out a year later, Ace Ventura, When Nature Calls, I would also recommend you that one. Skip the third one. Do not go near the third one. It does not have Jim Carrey in it. It's one of those awful sequels that you would not want to that you would stay away from. But it's a really funny movie that I do think that critics really took a bite out of this one for some reason. At number 2 is The Mask, another one where Jim Carrey is showing his physical comedy, where this one is very over the top. It's showing all sorts of really funny things about him. Like, this is one of the funniest of his movies, and believe me, I've seen a lot of his movies, and believe me, that's a big competition because he is hilarious. Even if the film is not very good, he still is really funny, and this is just one of the funniest parts of him. He is just cracking all sorts of these big jokes, like after he falls out of a window, he's like, "Look, Ma, I'm roadkill." And that's just a really funny part of the movie. I love this movie. One of my favorite movies in 1994. It's up there with things like well, we'll talk later about what's going to be up higher. And it's just such a funny movie that is very sensual. All Jim Carrey in the 90s, he had to have some grown-up humor in it. He was not a kids guy in the 90s. Maybe in like the early 2000s, but no. He was aiming for like the teenage. He was aiming for the middle class teenagers. That was what he was aiming for. He was not aiming for kids at all, and it's on full display here. It is not a kids movie. It is a teenagers movie that teenagers will get a kick out of, and it's a really funny movie that I really enjoy revisiting, and one that I am really happy I discovered. But coming in first place for me is Dumb and Dumber. Probably his funniest movie. Like, between this and Liar Liar, this is like his gold standard in terms of like comedy. He is just fantastic in these movies, and this one is really good at aiming for like the lowbrow humor that some people are gonna be like, okay, this movie does not work. The critics were not too kind to this. It's in the 60s on Rotten Tomatoes, so they were not as fond of it as they should have been. I would guess that if they could redo this, then it would probably be higher now than it was when it came out, because people were not ready to see something this crass, this this grown up, and I am surprised this movie was able to get itself into PG-13. There's an unrated cut that I actually did see. The unrated cut is probably the better version because it's longer and funnier, simply because they could put more adult jokes in there. But I do like both versions. This one's it's just a really funny movie, and I hear that the sequels are awful. One of the reasons I put this one over This one is because Dumb and Dumber 2 is not known to be nearly as bad as Son of the Mask, which of all of the non-Jim Carrey of the sequels that were sequels to the Jim Carrey movies from 1994 or 1995, because he did release Ace Ventura: When Nature Calls. 1995 of Dumb and Dumber, When Harry Met Lloyd, and that one. What is it? Son of the Mask and Ace Ventura Jr. Pet Detective. I have only seen Son of the Mask, and the reason this gets the etch over is because Son of the Mask was so awful it ruined my experience partially with The Mask. That is how unbelievably awful that film is, and I have not seen Dumb and Dumber 2 or Dumb and Dumber When Harry Met Lloyd. I think I said that right, but it's just Son of the Mask was so unbelievably awful that my experience with that film was tainted, and I have not seen the other Dumb and Dumbers yet, so I said yet. I'm going to have to see those films soon. Oh, man, I'm going to have a really bad day that day. But it's just a really funny movie that has all sorts of laugh-out-loud moments, and I'm going to say this probably, like I just, it's in the title, this is probably Jim Carrey's dumbest character, and that is saying something. He plays some dumb characters, and also some really funny ones. He's not nearly as funny as he is in The Mask or Ace Ventura Pet Detective, because those characters on their own are more funny because they're intentionally trying to be funny. Dumb and Dumber, well, like Jim Carrey in that, his character is aimed to not intentionally be like this funny. He's meant to just be doing the stuff on accident, and that's kind of why it works so well. He's doing things on accident that are dumb, and yet they're so funny because it's not intentional. And that's just such a funny thing, and I really love this movie, so I would recommend you guys watch all of them. You can watch Ace Ventura: When Nature Calls, but after that, skip all the rest in this franchise. These are, like Son of the Mask in particular, don't go anywhere near that film. That film is awful. I recommend, if you want to keep your time managed well, don't see that film. It is so bad. And just thank you so much for watching this. What is your ranking of these 1994 Jim Carrey movies? Let me know your ranking down in the comments below. Thank you all so much for watching this, and have a good one.